All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sporting Chance podcast. Be sure to check out sportingchancepod.com for all your flyest new Sporting Chance pod merch. If you're anything like me, you struggled for a while trying to find a source for performance canines. Well, look no further. Check out Clover Creek Canine on Facebook for your performance canine needs. For your East Coast and micro hawking needs, hit up mountainstatefalconrysupply.com. If you want to be cool like me this hunting season and fly a parent-reared goshawk, there's virtually no other source but our boy Seth Roy. Go to northmountaingoshawks.com to put your deposit down on next year's hunting partner. And while you're at it, go ahead and put an order in with the king of tight, Richard Moats, maker of the tightest braided equipment at midnightfalconry.com. Isaac Gale, welcome to the Sporting Chance podcast.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. Sorry.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, our pleasure, man. So you come as a very well-regarded falconer. Seth Roy says a lot of good things about you. And as I understand, you are a student of Steve Layman. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've known Steve since 2019, and we developed a close friendship as I imprinted a goshawk, a male goshawk in 2019, and I got to know him pretty well from then onwards, and he's a real good friend of mine, and he's changed my life in many ways, not just in falconry, but just in life in general. Amazing person.
Very cool. So tell us, how did you get started into falconry?
Well, I started falconry when I was 14 years old. I'm 38 now, so that's 24 years. And out of 24 years, I think there was maybe 2 seasons that I haven't flown. And I started falconry. A cousin of mine, he was at my house, and we had seen some turkey vultures in a marsh area. And I'm like, wow, you know what? I think I want to get one of those as a pet. And then he shared with me, he's like, there's this thing called falconry. And he's like, I read this book, My Side of the Mountain, he's like, and he used to live in California. And he said, and he's like, I was out and about, and I saw this guy have falcons on a block, and it stuck with him. And he's like, you can use birds of prey to hunt, he says. I think you can. And I'm like, no way. I'm like, that is so cool. So you don't just have to have them as a pet. They can actually do something, And that's how it started. And it's interesting because my first memory of birds of prey, and I think that really cemented my interest in raptors, was when I was a boy. I lived in Sweden, and we had a little canary that we had in the picture window. And it was a beautiful orange factor, red factor canary. And I was sitting there, and the bird was, singing away. And then out of nowhere, there's bam, hits the window and scares the crap out of the canary. It falls off the perch, this like palpating, And I look out, I quickly run to the window to see what it was. And I saw the crash. I saw the bird fly off into the neighbor's pine trees. And it was like, it was like imprinted on my brain like nothing else. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but I look back because it was like it was yesterday. And it was a male Swedish goshawk that had tried to attack the canary. And that was my first like super interest in birds of prey. And the second one, as I was a boy there, we had bantams, and I raised bantams. And I heard this commotion in the backyard, and the chickens were like going nuts. The bantams were going nuts. And I go in the back, and I had, if you know bantams, roosters are pretty feisty birds.
I know bantams very well. I've got a bantam that you can't walk in my yard without being attacked by him.
Okay, so I had a lot of these bantam roosters, and I opened the pen, and it was open. It was open aviary for the chickens, and in the corner of the pen was a sparrowhawk that was getting the crap beat up out of it by my bantam roosters. And it was this long line. I mean, it was this craziest thing. The bantams are all lined up, taking turns, beating the crap out of this sparrowhawk. And then the next one would go after the next one. And I was like, oh, I felt so sorry for the poor sparrowhawk, And I got in there and the chickens moved away. And then the first out the sparrowhawk had, off it flew. Was looking back, it was probably a female based on the memory of the size. But that was how I got my first start into really birds of prey and really being obsessed about them. And I went to the library, and this was like, I'm dating myself, 38 years old. That time, internet was just kind of getting started. It was dial-up was just getting started. The library was still a thing that you went to get faster internet. And forums were just kind of getting started. I mean, you remember the Yahoo groups and what was the other forums that they used to have? Oh, I forget now. But
Nafex.
Nafex. It was before Nafex. These were GeoCity sites, that kind of thing.
Angel Fire.
This was all. Yeah. And so these were early. It was in the beginning stages of all of that. And I went to the library and I found these super old English falconry books. And I didn't even know. Now, this is how funny it is. I didn't even really know that falconry existed in the United States. Like, I was so alienated by this whole thing. And all the falconry books are European falconry books. Philip Glacier's book. Gilbert Blaine's book, Emma Ford's book, all of these old falconry books. And I thought, you know what, and it was funny because in these old books, they talk about kestrels and sparrowhawks. And when you read sparrowhawk, I'm thinking kestrel. And then, so I thought to myself, well, I'm going to get a kestrel, a sparrowhawk, and I'm going to hunt all these awesome things, And I thought about it, and then I discovered that there were rules and regulations. And I'm like, I remember when I first got the list of everything they wanted you to have, a leash, a jesses, and a scale, and swivels, and all of this stuff. And I'm like, these guys are control freaks. I'm like, this is ridiculous, And I was so amped up about it. I was so upset that there were all these rules and regulations and processes. And I just want to get out and get a bird. And at that point, I discovered there was a falconry club. And that was my journey and start into falconry. So
what state did this take place in?
This was all in Michigan. Yep. That's where I currently at in Michigan.
So you've been there the whole time, your whole falconry journey.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So you grew up in Sweden? You were born there?
I was born in California, and I moved to Sweden at a pretty early age, and I lived there until I was about 12 years old. And then we moved back.
That's interesting. Was it as beautiful as it looks in like all the pictures and videos and stuff like that?
It's a very beautiful country. I lived in the southern part of Sweden. Which is it's agricultural land. And our family still has a house over there. And my parents were over there doing some remodeling on it this summer, and they shared a bunch of pictures. I haven't been there in a long time. And it's like nothing's changed. It's just beet fields where we are, sugar beet fields. And the pheasants are still there in good numbers. And the European brown hare is still there like crazy, hopping around, fighting. And, I remember that as a child too, the European brown hares there. And funny story about that one winter in the snow, I trailed one for hours, and I freaked my parents out because I had just completely disappeared. And I found my way home, but they were so scared. But yeah, the pursuing of brown hares and lagomorphs was had an early start for me, I guess.
What's the state of falconry in that part of the world?
I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I researched it. Back in the day when the International Falconry Forum was still running, there were a few falconers that had been were Swedish. I don't know if they were still living in the country, but I got the impression that it was almost non-existent and not allowed, or under very special circumstances for rehabbing. And I don't think that might have changed. I think they were working on it. Oddly enough, if I remember right, the state of falconry in Denmark was at that time was at a higher, more evolved state than Sweden. That's just reference for the two Scandinavian countries. I don't know anything about Norway or Finland.
It never crossed my mind like that falconry was going on in those places. I mean, maybe Finland, it crossed my mind because Finnish goshawks and stuff like that. But yeah, Sweden, it never crossed my mind. I wonder what they're doing over there. You know what I mean? Like I never thought that.
You don't really hear much about them.
No. I mean, I get like there's like a big Polish community, you know, some, obviously the major European countries, we all know about, but yeah, Sweden, I never thought about like the culture of falconry in that country, but interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that they have from what my research way back in the day when International Falconry Forum was running and I was talking about it, it was almost, I don't even think it really existed. I mean, again, I guess maybe rehabbing that kind of thing. But they do have a hunting culture there. And there's this guy on YouTube that I follow, and he bird hunts with pointing dogs in the Scandinavian woods. And so, I mean, when I watch those videos, I'm like, wow, I mean, to me, it looks like northern Michigan. It's pretty cool, which I guess is why so many Swedes and Finns came over to Minnesota and, northern Michigan. It would look like home.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So, are you into any other types of hunting living up there?
I work full time. I have 4 kids, and I have a lot less time than I'd like to devote to falconry. Not falconry, but hunting sports. I love fly fishing, and I used to deer hunt quite a bit when I lived out in the country. I deer hunted out my backyard, and that made it really easy. And I like to stalk and know what animals are there. I don't like to just randomly go out, sit up in a tree for hours on it, hoping something's going to cross by. I want to have I want to know I'm going to have a pretty good chance because I've scouted it, and that just takes time. And I don't have the time to do it. I guess at the end of the day, I don't feel like I have the time to do deer hunting properly. And I like to bird hunt, and I've done that a few times. But honestly, falconry is keeps me pretty busy with everything I have going on.
Yeah. Anytime somebody wants to get into falconry that is really passionate about deer hunting, I tell them they're going to have to hang up the deer hunting. You might be able to go out early with a bow during archery season and get a couple of deer, but you're not going to be able to sit all weekend in a tree stand.
Yeah, I play guitar. I'm a beekeeper. I have so many hobbies. I just don't have. And falconry is one of those obsessions that takes so much time, and I love it the most. So I devote the most of the time, my free time that I have after family to falconry, and that eats up a lot of time. So,
Casey, what'd you do about deer hunting and falconry?
Yeah, I got started in both of them at the same time. And I definitely went through a phase where I was obsessed with deer hunting, and going out as often as I could, going out after work or after school, trying to get in a tree. And it's just, when the falconer and flying a red tail is different, but then when your schedule gets busy and there's no time, you really, at a certain point, you just have to pick one or the other. Yeah, that's just for me. And nowadays my wife she wants me to get at least 1 or 2 does, make her happy, have some meat in the freezer. And then after that, I could just do whatever I want. Which is interesting.
Deer and just tell her you shot him. And then don't eat it.
Because I got to eat it.
Yeah, just don't eat it.
Poison my whole family. I mean, where I live now, kind of like Isaac was saying, I could just literally just wait in my backyard and just arrow a deer and then go back inside, and that's it. Like I don't do what you really, when you really want to go hunting. I can hunt on my own property. I got 4 acres, and I could shoot here. I could do whatever I want. So that makes it a lot easier. But yeah, if I had to go drive to a spot, put on all the gear, find a tree to climb up, sit there until dark, like I don't really have much desire to do that anymore. I do have a desire to do it for bear though, because obviously after last year, a bear is getting it this year in New Jersey for sure. He's getting it. So that's going to be a priority for sure early season, because New York is great. You would think New York sucks, but New York has like an early bear that opens like September 1st and goes for like 2 weeks. And you can shoot it with a crossbow, bow, I think like a rifle, shotgun. I think one year they put in pistol too. And then it shuts down and then it opens. Yeah. Oh, pistol.
Turn that shit to the side. And let it rip.
Where's my money? Yeah. But last year, I don't think they.
New Jersey, do you?
Say that again?
Get a lot of practice of that in New Jersey, do you?
Yeah, they do a lot of that.
I don't know why I should be talking just south of Detroit, but whatever.
Yeah, I know. It's a good point. Yeah, but we got Camden down there in Jersey. It's like very dangerous area. But anyway, enough of that. So I want to hear so you found a sponsor. Is there anything interesting to discuss there? You just did the normal. Did Fish and Game put you in contact with anybody back then at that time period?
Yeah, so back then we started. I still remember the guy's name. Jim Jansen was his name, and he was the DNR permit specialist at the time. Really nice guy. And at that time, they gave a list of falconers that you could contact. And it was our club was very regimented, and I mean they wanted you to go through the whole process of finding a sponsor and getting to know you, and all of those kinds of very traditional kind of things. And so I guess I should say my background is I was homeschooled my entire life, so I was extremely independent person, and I didn't fit the mold of anything really because
I knew there was something weird about you.
Yeah.
Isaac, I was homeschooled my whole life too.
No,
I don't know if you knew
think
that.
Seth told me that.
Yeah, we're kindred spirits. We don't like authority. Yeah. We don't like people telling us what to do.
Right. I work in schools, and we admit homeschool students into my school, and rebellious, not into authority. That is not homeschool students.
Well, I guess it.
Yeah, it's just you're raised a different way. I definitely have an anti-authority kind of personality.
That's got nothing to do with homeschool.
No, you don't think?
You think Mama Sue beating you? She beat the love of authority out of you or something?
Oh yeah, she definitely beat us. That was the thing that sucked about being homeschooled, is like if you didn't do your homework, you got whipped, and that kind of sucked.
I didn't get that. I just I don't know. My cousin he started the whole falconry journey with me, and so he was 2 years older than me, so he had a driver's license, and so we went hunting together that way. But he was homeschooled as well, and we started the falconry journey together. And so when it was time to find a sponsor, I called every number on the list, and it was very hard actually to find a sponsor. And I joined the club, and I was a cocky SOB, and I really wasn't willing to. I mean, I think back at the things I said, and I'm like, I can't believe I said that. And I guess worse yet was the responses that I was getting back from some of these adults. I'm like, I can't believe they even said what was happening back then.
Give us some for instances.
What's that?
Give us some for instances.
Oh, I guess like I'll give you one instance that comes to mind. I mean, we were on the forums going back and forth, and like forums were new and newbies were asking advice, and I was giving advice where I had no experience, but I shared my opinion anyway of what I had read. And of course, the people that have been and like I said, this is not right or wrong. I mean, it is what it is. They were sharing, hey, you don't really know what you're talking about. You don't have experience. You shouldn't be giving advice to people that you yourself aren't experienced. And I'm like, I just asked them, well, was my advice bad? Well, no. I'm like, so shove off then,
Yeah.
So, I mean, many kind of situations like that. I mean, again, I was a cocky 14-year-old. I can't, in retrospect, I wouldn't be, well, I was who I was. I mean, I'm not going to make an apology for that. I mean, I look back, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but that's water under the bridge, I guess. So, and then afterwards, I did find a sponsor after looking, and the person was like, this was this whole big deal. And I'm not advocating for paper sponsorship. Okay. I think sponsorship is a good thing. The value of a sponsor cannot be understated if you have a good one. And but I didn't find one. They weren't willing to sponsor me because I didn't fit the mold. I wasn't submissive enough. I wasn't, so I said, fine, whatever. I found a paper sponsor, and the sponsor signed my paper. And it was funny because he was a very accomplished, good falconer and an incredible man. He was a cancer research doctor at the University of Michigan. And he signed my paper, and he said, look, he's like, I'll sign your paper. He's like, don't tell anybody. He's like, because I'm going to get backlash from the club. Okay. So he's like, just do your thing. Okay. Well, I went to the picnic, and they were all kind of like, rubbing their hands because, and I'm like, oh, I got a sponsor. Oh, a paper sponsor. Oh, and then they actually, after that had come to fruition, they had changed the laws to make sure that there was this thing called a sponsorship agreement that had to be signed between the sponsor and they had to there was like a contract kind of deal, and you had to send that into the state after the whole mess with me and my cousin here locally. And so
we got all changed immediately. Good for you.
Yeah. And so I got the and then finally they pressured they pressured my paper sponsor so hard that he's like, he had to drop me. He's like, I can't take it anymore. So he's like, you're gonna have to find someone else. I'm sorry. So anyway, so I was able to, at that point, I had already been a falconer for like a year or 2 years, because I started when I was 14, and you couldn't be a general until you were, 18, I think it was. So for my case, it was like a 4-year apprenticeship. And so I had to find 2 years in, I had to find another sponsor after this whole rule thing. And I found another guy, and he's like, dude, you've been a falconer for 2 years. You've been successful. Your birds are healthy. He's like, I'll sign your paper. He's like, so I got another paper sponsor, and that just drove him nuts.
So you were just like basing everything off of books essentially, or were you calling him for advice and stuff like that, or what?
So it was mostly books. It was a lot of trial and error. and I had a very good friend that lived across the state from me. Everett Horton was his name, and he's very involved in NAFA and was helped me taught me how to trap with BC traps, and was an extremely influential character in my early falconry, and gave me a lot of good advice and helped me a lot. And falconry, I wouldn't be on my journey if it wasn't for him. Now, there were other people too that were really influential in my falconry life. I would be remiss to mention their names, and that would be Barry Ouellette, who was a renowned goshawk breeder, very well known, bred a lot of North American goshawks. And in fact, believe it or not, he lived 10, 15 minutes bike ride from my house. And I used to hang out a lot at his place. I watch him hack goshawks and have a lot of conversations with him. And he was a very interesting character. And he really, and because of the club, the nature of the club and the old guard at that time, and because I'm not really involved in my local falconry club, because like I said, I guess I have a little bit of PTSD, maybe you might want to call it. And so I kind of avoided the whole club culture after my baptism by fire. And he was the club in that way, of because of the way they were. They really it's pushed me to be the best freaking falconer I could be, because I was going to show them up. And so my thirst for knowledge and for perfection and to hone my craft was out of this world, because I wanted to show all the old guard that I had what it took, and I was gonna make a name for myself just to prove them wrong.
Good for you.
So
good for you.
I think back, and it's like I don't know if I would have been in the position of mentorship and guiding and training and all of that, I definitely wouldn't have taken the approach that I felt like I got. But that approach caused me to try to perfect my falconry to the level that I got to a point of being really happy. So
it's good, man. I think we all should strive for that, regardless of our circumstances. Just do the best we can with the birds that we have and try to always improve. And that's why you shouldn't fly a haressock until you're old and gray.
Speaking of which, Isaac, we'll get to goshawks, but what have you flown? Of course, you flew red tails. Anything else?
Yeah, I've flown red tails. I've flown many passage Cooper's hawks. That was after I got my after I went through 4-year apprenticeship with red tails, and I had flown red tails after became a general. I flew an imprinted and tame hacked my first goshawk from Barry Ouellette. And it was actually really cool, because I was actually tame hacked at Barry's place. And so I would drop him off in the morning at Barry's place, and then pick him up in the afternoon. And that was my first goshawk. And I had flown passage Cooper's hawks, quite a few of those, early trap. I flew them at sparrows in barns. I lived in the country. And then I've flown 2 Tiercel peregrine falcons. I have flown, I did abatement work in Washington State with Raul Ramirez. And I did that for 2 summers, I think, 2 seasons I did that. So I flew Aplomado falcons. I messed with some prairie falcons. What else? 2 peregrines. Aplamados, Passage, Coopers. Oh, I flew a Passage Sharpie for a short time. I imprinted a male Sharpie musket, if you want to call it that. That was a lot of fun. And I've imprinted a few more goshawks. I flew a Passage goshawk. I'm trying to think else if feel like I'm missing something else, but I can't think of one at the moment.
That's quite the list.
You were telling us about hunting deer with your eagle owl earlier before we started recording.
That was just a joke.
Oh, okay.
So out of that list, that extensive list, I mean, anything that stands out that you'd like to talk about that you experienced? I mean, Aaron is Aaron's a Cooper's Hawk specialist as well. So he has quite the repertoire with Cooper's Hawks. He says they're an easy bird to fly. Would you agree with that?
Passage or imprints? Which one are easy?
Early taken. Aaron prefers an early taken family bird. It's an inside joke because Aaron flew one Cooper's Hawk, but he had but it was like a perfect experience, and he had zero issues. Which I failed miserably with a Cooper's Hawk, and I'll admit that. But Aaron had a very good experience with a Cooper's Hawk. So then me and him go back and forth, and it's like this inside joke with the show. But there is definitely mixed reviews on Cooper's Hawks. Like some people say they're really not that hard. Other people say it's the hardest bird in America to fly with success. What's your opinion on that?
Passage or imprints? Which one are we talking about?
Maybe you could break down both.
Well, it's quite interesting because the way I practice falconry since I've met Steve has been like 180 compared to what I did before. And so all my experiences prior are going to will be what most people know as normal falconry processes, manning, that kind of thing. I can only share my experiences of what I experienced then under that kind of training, right? Versus how I do things now since I've known Steve. And back then, when I noticed there was a huge variety in Passage Cooper's Hawks. I would trap them as soon as the falconry season opened, and I would use a Swedish goshawk trap, and I would trap them right off the bat. And some of them were very chill, very calm. Other ones were not so chill. I don't know if I would call them. Well, yeah. No, I'm thinking back of all the broken tail feathers, the first few. I will say that there is a huge leap from Passage Redtail to Passage Cooper's Hawk. It's not it's a night and day there's a huge difference. And so that learning curve is pretty steep. I think, it's funny because we have this apprenticeship program, right? And you're supposed to get this sponsor, and you get the sponsor for Redtail and a Kestrel. It's like, maybe we should have a sponsor. I can't believe I'm saying this, but maybe we should have a sponsorship for accipiters.
I think I'm with you about no more government oversight, but I do think that if you have a brain cell in your brain, you will latch yourself onto somebody that's flown a couple goshawks and knows what they're doing, and say, "Listen, I'm getting this. I'm hoping to pull a bird, or I placed an order with a breeder. Will you be willing to help me and try to guide me through this?" You know what I mean? Because I think that's like, for me at least, that was like what helped me really get going, was having Phil, who also talks to Steve, who put me on to Steve, to just be in my ear literally twice a day. I'd call him in the morning. All right, she's this weight. I'm going to drop her. I'm going to go this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for ducks. And he's like, all right, okay, keep me posted. And I'd call him as the bird's eating. All right, she did this, she did that. And he's like, okay. And it was literally a play-by-play with somebody that would help me do it. And that was like huge. Like you can't pay money for
really
that.
Is.
You know what I mean?
It really is. And I mean, I'm thinking back and I think of situations where us falconers, I don't know what falconry culture is all over the place, but I think my initial response used to be was kind of judgmental. You know, you would see a bird that was beat to hell up, you know, and you would just give that, you know, look and think that person has no idea what they're doing, you know, and you get all that. And I'm thinking to myself, that's changed as I've gotten older. And it's just like when I see a situation like that, I see the evidence of somebody that could use some help and could use some training and can use some guidance. And when that becomes your starting place in a conversation, you can quickly tell if the person is receptive to that, and you can share, or if they know it all already, and then you're just like, well, okay, then good luck. But you know, back to your question, I don't think Passage Cooper's hawks are an easy bird of prey to work with. There are things that you can do that work. There's recipes, you know, you can utilize, and learning processes. And I once you know the tricks, I think if you had somebody that had worked with Passage Cooper's hawks before, and like let's say I had a new person that got a Passage Cooper's hawk, and they called me up and said, hey, you know, can you help me through this? And in fact, I have a friend of mine that very situation, and he's like, well, I really want to fly one. And I've walked him through a few, and and his birds are in pretty good feather condition. And he's super receptive and helpful for the advice that I've given him. And his birds turned out really well. And in fact, one of the last ones he had was a soar hawk, male Cooper's hawk. And that has been on my, go ahead.
So like, okay, a soar hawk and a family bird, is that the same thing?
Yeah, it's
okay.
I would call a soar. I think the definition of a soar hawk is one that's kind of left the nest. I don't know. There's this whole. I consider a brancher literally third tail feathers, you know, third bar down, something of that nature. And then for me, the designation of soar hawk kind of becomes when they're very close to penning, or if not at penning, and they haven't quite dispersed completely. That's, I think, my definition of soar hawk. I don't know if it matches the classical definition, but that's
okay.
my.
And then the term family bird, and I heard this on one of Ben Woodruff videos. So that's basically the same thing as a soar hawk. It's in that same stage or somewhere in between.
I have never heard the term family hawk. I don't know. I don't know that term, but that's soar hawk is around penning, if not a little bit before, maybe, I don't know, 40 days old onward, you know, when they're flying around pretty well, but they haven't dispersed yet. And like I said, I don't know if that's the proper definition of a soar hawk, but that's the one I've always used.
Still hanging out with the siblings.
Yeah. And still being fed by the parents occasionally. And so it's been on my bucket list to fly a soar hawk, urban Cooper's hawks. And I live in a very urban environment here in Michigan, in Wyandotte, just 20 minutes south of Detroit. And we have Cooper's hawks everywhere here in the city. And my goal has always been, hey, one day I'm going to trap a early, soar hawk, Cooper's hawk, and man it through and do that. And I've just been obsessed with goshawks. I can't get the kickoff. But my friend wanted to try a Cooper's hawk. And I said, hey, you should try a soar hawk. This could be the way to go. And he had a heck of a time trapping one because they're really uninterested in food at that age. And he finally was able to get one. And he got one, he got one in a phi trap, and he put the carcass in the middle, and they had come in and walked over, or I forget how the whole deal went, but he got one like that, and he was very careful as to not cause too much fear or trauma. Put a blanket towel over him and put the hood on very carefully and walked him. He really went through the process with as little as causing fear and jumpiness as possible. And he said that bird was the nicest, easiest going Cooper's hawk he'd ever worked with. He loved it. On the first head of game, listen to this, the first head of game, he slips it out the car window. It catches a starling. A red tail drops off the pole and kills him. He takes off with it.
Oh my
It
God.
was
That
a turn
sucks.
for once, huh?
That's falconry.
Yeah, it sure is. And I mean, listen, this potentially could be like a 4-hour podcast with you. Because I don't want to get into, the trapping and trauma and all that. I love your assessment of Cooper's hawks. If you are finished, I don't know if did we cover everything?
I have a question about Cooper's hawks.
Go ahead, Aaron.
What do you think is the limit on game that you can pursue with a Cooper's hawk? Specifically, do you think that people could hunt squirrels with a Cooper's hawk?
That's an interesting question. And I say it's interesting because when I pulled one of my first imprint Cooper's hawks, you know what was in the nest? Gray squirrels. Tons and tons of gray squirrels, feet of gray squirrels in the nest. And the the nest was just full of them. And they were young gray squirrels, old, all kinds. Now, would I advocate to hunt gray squirrels with a Cooper's hawk? I don't know if I would do it personally, because I still think gray squirrels can have a pretty nasty bite. And I guess I would add this caveat to it. And Casey talked about this in his imprinting video, I think it was. If you fly your birds sharp, they tend to take more risks than they would if you flew them round. And I think I would err on the side of caution, because I think probably most falconers would probably fly their Cooper's hawk sharper than they should, and therefore possibly risk getting more bites. So I would be cautious about it. Could they do it? Yeah, they do it in the wild. Is it the best bird for the job? Maybe if you flew a big female and you knew what you were doing and you could fly it at a good, robust level, and she would let go as soon as she felt like she didn't have a grip. I could see it happening, but I think that would be a rare falconer that really had it would be, for me, I would imagine it would be an imprint, a rare falconer with that flew their female Coopers at a really, good condition, condition. Yeah.
What would you consider a large imprint female and in weight, in grams?
Oh man, I haven't imprinted a female. Well, I did, but I don't remember what it weighed. I honestly, I don't think I could give you a good answer on that.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think a female Cooper's hawk on red squirrel would be like the ultimate experience of a lifetime. Just if you were like in an area like, I know upstate New York, when I'm looking for goshawk nests, there's just red squirrels everywhere. And if you had a female coops, man, just chasing those little squirrels around, because the big female goshawks, it's so hard for them to catch those little suckers. So
yeah,
it would be so fun to just watch a bird that's just that much smaller but extremely intense. I mean, that would be like the perfect bird for that situation. I don't know. I flew Tiercel goshawks on gray squirrels, and it's not their cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do it. I've caught a bunch, but it's not like their preferred quarry. So and and a bite. And like, as we all know, anybody with a brain cell, accipiters they don't really want to get bit. They'll let go, they'll regrip unless the bird is low, like we discussed. So, but if you have one mistake where your bird is a little too low, or it's your bird's at the weight that you say that you feel is robust, and then it's in Michigan, it's negative 10 degrees and you're chasing squirrels. I mean, one bite from a gray squirrel on a Cooper's hawk and it's curtains, that foot's going to be, in some serious trouble. So,
yeah. And it's interesting too, because in Michigan, I don't know how it is in New Jersey, but in Michigan, do you have male Cooper's hawks that stay around there year round? Because to find a male's Cooper hawk in wintertime is almost, I don't think I've never ever seen them.
That's a good question. I mean, that's a really good question. I don't think I really notice. Sure. The only time I really keep my eyes out for Cooper's hawk is when I'm flying a Merlin. And I haven't done that in a while.
I'm probably 15 hours south of you, and I see male Cooper's hawks all year.
Yeah, maybe it's warmer.
I'm sure it's warmer.
Yeah, because I have a hypothesis, and I think it has something to do with I don't think the male Cooper's hawks have enough biomass to survive the cold weather here in Michigan, where the females can, and so the males end up following the passerines, just like Sharpies would, male and female, south, and the females can stay. I just a hypothesis. I don't know if it
makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It's a good hypothesis. All right, Aaron, where are we going from here?
Let's talk goshawks.
Let's do it.
All right. So you got your first goshawk. It sounds like you got your first one fairly early.
Yeah. Well, when I was 18, I think, because I was 14 and then I had to be a general. So yeah, as soon as I turned a general, which would have been around 18, I got my, I think I was 18. I got my first goshawk.
Okay. And you said that was captive bred and tame hacked at the guy's house. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a good process. I mean, I got to check my goshawk. I hear him cacking.
Yeah, is that that's the one you brought to the Jersey meet?
No, this is a Finnish male that I'm imprinting. Yeah, he's good.
So where'd that bird come from?
This one came from Lance Christensen.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Anything interesting about that bird? Anything special?
Well, I think that I from what I understand, the female is first F1 finish passage, so it's like a wild take finish. So it's kind of I guess it's kind of cool. So I don't know how many are still floating around like that. So that was special, I guess, about that bird.
I'd say that's pretty freaking special, man. That's incredible. I mean, that's the whole problem. And like I said, we got some time here. We're only at an hour. We're doing okay. So I can go off on a little tangent, but this whole thing about breeding goshawks and these amazing breeders, it really kind of like and listen, I am so grateful for breeders because I just got my first wild goshawk like 2 months ago, a month ago with Aaron. So without breeders, it would just be like a crapshoot, or I would have probably maybe put more effort into it. But with that being said, this whole thing about goshawks, like people take it for granted. And I've even myself been guilty of that, where it's just like, okay, somebody got a fin. Oh, this guy's flying an albitus. Like, dude, do you even have any idea what you're flying? You know what I mean?
It's incredible.
It's insane. Like you go to Seth's house and, you see the bird and it has a band on it. It has one band for Fish and Wildlife and another band that says Finland on it. Because it was trapped in Finland and shipped here like 15 years ago or something. Yeah, you know what I mean? Cool. It's insane. It's the coolest thing ever.
It really is. And I mean, you probably remember. I remember looking at one of the falconry NAFA journals, right? And I still remember the name of the bird. Well, there were two. One was named Rudolph, and it was a white Siberian goshawk, and that was a picture of it. And I was like, is this for real? Like, is it, can white goshawks exist? Do they exist? What am I looking at here? Is this true? And then the other one was, the bird's name was Kalinka. And that was like a famous name. And I think that was guy Ernst Lutgard, I think it might have been, that kind of made that bird famous. And that was like my first introduction to white goshawks. And I couldn't believe it. Like, it was just surreal, right? And now, I mean, every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a white goshawk. It's like, what world am I living in? It's so weird. It's just so
it's
bizarre.
Insane. Guys in North Carolina could just it's crazy. It's just
not that long ago they were $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still like 7 if you want like I guess if kind of like when you're buying diamonds, like you can get a legit diamond, for a couple $1,000. But if you want like a certified one with the papers and stuff, like you're paying a premium.
That's going to cost you.
That's going to cost you a pretty penny. And some breeders, they have the paperwork to back up what they're selling. Other guys just kind of like, unless you take it and get a DNA test, you really don't know what the hell you have.
Well, when I first went to Lance Christensen's facility, that was my first, my first parent reared goshawk came from Lance. Mm-hmm. He was telling me about the Finnish birds and then how a lot of people would just generalize those European birds as Finnish birds. And that to him, Finnish means something. Like if it's a Finnish bird, it's a Finnish bird. And I think it's kind of sad that the lineage of a lot of those European goshawks has just been lost. Like, that would be really cool. I told him there, if you could buy a German European goshawk, or Swedish, whatever. That would be neat. I think so, at least. I might be a minority on that one. But at this point, Finnish has just been muddied up. So unless you're buying from a couple of reputable breeders, you're not getting a real Finnish bird.
Bro, I heard stories of people buying birds, dude, and they're like, it's a pure North American. And when that sucker molts out, dude, he's got like half horizontal, half vertical bars in the chest. And they're like, I don't think that's a fin. And then the breeder's like, no, some of them look like that, dude. Some of them look. It's like, I'm dead serious, bro. I'm dead serious.
There's a lot of mutts out there.
But like at the end of the day, and like this is even like, okay, so even like Seth, sponsor of the show, Seth Roy, our boy, North Mountain Goshawks, he even says it. He's like, a goshawk, a lot of times is a goshawk. And if you put the time and effort into it, it's going to be a complete monster. Like if you want a specific thing and you're paying for you know what I mean? Like you can get a white bird. You can shop around. You can get a white bird for $3,000 or less. You know what I mean? But if you want like a pure albitus from Seth, from Lance, I think there's like a couple other guys like Jeff Kissack. There's a couple guys that breed like pure, like it's pure, and you're gonna pay for the fact that it's pure. And like Moglich has some pure birds, and like you can clearly see the difference. I got a secondhand pure albitus. It's a completely different looking bird, not just the coloration, but the shape of the bird. A butyoides, a fin butyoides cross is short and stocky like a red tail. A pure albitus is like a long, tall, slender bird, long feet. They look a little bit different. It's the whole idea of all these guys. It just fascinates me, and it gets me so freaking fired up. I don't know why. Aaron's like rolling his eyes. It gets me fired up, dude. I don't know why.
Yeah, me and Isaac are both uncomfortable right now. You're over there getting boned up about.
No, I love it, man. I love it. I mean, a goshawk's a goshawk, but it's just if you want, dude, relax. My owl's like taking a bath right now. If you want something specific, you're going to pay a pretty penny for it. But a goshawk is a goshawk.
Locale specific has been big in reptiles, and I think it's a cool concept. And I think that it's I like knowing where my animals are from, right? So I'm into it.
Yeah, bro. If it's not Ractodactylus, I ain't paying for it.
Exactly. I want to know the island it came from, you know?
What is Ractodactylus is what? Leachianus geckos, right?
Leachianus racodactylus.
Ractodactylus. That's the only thing I remember from any reptile, European. What is it, Aaron? What's the name? Latin. It's a Latin, right? It's a Latin scientific name. Latin scientific name. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
All right. So got your first goshawk, tame hacked it. So what? With that experience, fast forward to now, because it sounds like you met Steve fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
What has changed in your approach with goshawks since meeting Steve?
Wow. Well, I think the biggest, I should maybe, I'm going to put it into an analogy that I use because I think it puts it into perspective. And that is over a long period of time since I was 14 until 6 years ago, since knowing Steve, I had honed and perfected my falconry, my craft. And I took meticulous notes to try to improve myself with every bird that I imprinted, things that I think I did wrong, things that I was going to do better with the next bird, and do's and don'ts and observations. And I believe this very strongly: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure in falconry. And so over time, with every imprint that I did, they were getting better, and I was pretty happy with that. But everyone that I had a quirk, or they had a little behavioral issue, or they had a fear, or they had a phobia, or they had a trauma, or they had whatever you want to call it. Like an airplane, cars or dogs, or whatever it could be. Getting in and out of the hawk box doesn't like it, or you know what you get the picture, right? And I could limp my way through it, and I could fix it, part of it, but it wasn't completely extinguished. And unfortunately or fortunately, I'm a perfectionist. So every little detail, if I can't fix it, it bothers the crap out of me. And I kind of got to a point in falconry where I kind of just almost resolved myself to just shrugging my shoulders and just accepting the fact that nothing is perfect. The world is not perfect, and neither is my falconry birds. And everyone is going to have a little quirk and flaw, and just hope that it's not a bad one. And just do the best you can. An ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, and just do the best you can. And I got pretty good at it. And the analogy, going back to the analogy that I wanted to share, that is, I was building a supercar, race car in a garage. And I was in the dark, blindfolded, with a very limited amount of tools, building a race car. And over time, I got really good at building a race car under these circumstances. There were issues that weren't perfected, but I got pretty darn good at it. And then I met Steve, and basically was apprenticed by him for 6 years. And I really went all in, listening to his stuff and following his stuff, just to learn as much as I could and question and see for myself. And it was like the lights came on. I had a tool chest full of snap-on tools. And I knew what the car was. I knew what I was working on, and any problem that I popped up, I could fix, because now I had the tools, I had the light, I could see what I was doing, and I could fix the problem. And that's what That's what behavioral science operant conditioning has done for me in my falconry, and has changed it from, it's that drastic to me. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, this is going to be a bold statement. The next zenith in falconry is if we can understand and adopt fully two things: the natural history of our birds that we work with, and two, understanding and purposefully using operant conditioning in our falconry. That will bring us to the next level in falconry, in my opinion. And case in point, you go to, well, back in the day, I don't know if they still have them, but you go to these aquariums and these dolphins are doing these flips and all this crazy stuff, and you're like, how the heck do they do it? That's what they're doing. They're using operant conditioning. And if you can train animals to do all of those crazy things and figure out their quirks and work with them and all of that kind of thing, we can do the same in our falconry. And so for me, that was the biggest change. So now, because of that, it's my falconry has changed, and it's very hard for me to answer questions simply because the answers are kind of it's almost fluid. It's I can give you a short answer, but it doesn't really make sense because you don't the background story is all part of the answer. So I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but
I mean, it makes sense to me just because I've spent, and just based off of our conversation this far, I would imagine an average phone call between you and Steve, on average, 3 hours?
In the beginning, we had conversations that lasted easily 3 hours for a long time.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, because I mean, I've spent, and Steve, if he has the time, man, that guy will just. I had that albitus, and you saw the albitus at the Jersey meet. Phil had it. I gave it to Phil. I just was at my wit's end with it, but I got it to the point where, I mean, this thing was bound to the glove, baiting at my face. And I was on the phone with Steve, and I'm like, I'm like, all right, I'm about to take her out of the mew. What do you think I should do? And he's like, all right, well, why don't you pull her out and let me know what she looks like? I'm like, okay. Dude, 2.5 hours later, I'm walking through my yard with a bag of tidbits in my bag. And I got her on a long creance in the snow in my backyard. And he's like, okay, what does she look like? He's like, just start walking. Just start walking around your yard. And I'm like, just start walking? He's like, just start walking. And I start walking, and she's bound to the glove. She's giving me this look. He's like, okay, what does she look like? I'm like, she's bound still. She's bound. He's like, okay, what does her feathers look like? Are the hackles up in the back? How hard is she mantling? I'm like, she's mantling pretty hard, but not super hard, like when I pulled her out of the chamber. He's like, okay, let me know when you just see a slight change in the way that she's mantling. And I go, oh, okay, she just kind of tucked the wing up. She's like, flick a tidbit. Literally like 3-4 days of doing that, the bird is sitting on the glove, loose-footed, just head bobbing. And I'm like, dude, this is like insane. In 3 days, this bird is literally just, I pull her out of the glove. She steps up onto the glove. I go to the field. I pull her out, and she is just head bobbing, looking around, and just, she had crazy quirks. It was like a third hand bird, but I mean, the stuff that this whole thing with the operative, I mean, I just play with my birds out right now. I got this bird from Jason Norman, and I just like to play. I'm not fully invested like you are, Isaac, but I'm to the point where like I have this new bird from Jason Norman out in Arizona. And, first it would see me cutting up food, or it would knew that it was going to be fed, and I have it on a block perch in a weathering area. So it sees me, and it would be baiting at me, baiting. I have it to the point now where I can hold the food. I can hold a quail 6 inches from its face, and it will look at the quail and then just turn around, look over its shoulder, and then jump to the end of its leash and stand and turn and stand. And when it stands, that's only when I feed it. And now it's just like, it knows, like I just walk in, and it starts baiting away from me as I walk into the mew. It's insane.
It's scared of
it really
you. That's
is.
what it's doing.
No, it's baiting, turning, looking at me, baiting, turning and looking at me. Like and then once I hold the food, then it faces me and freezes. And then I give it the food, it takes it, and then just sits there and plucks, tucked up.
Yeah, operant conditioning is really I mean, we all use it. We all use it in our falconry. It's a law of nature. It's like you can either purposely use it or you can use it by accident. Either which way, it's happening. And a good question may be, asking why, why, what? Because I knew about it before. What made me take the plunge into this crazy world, and why was I apprehensive before? And I'll tell you that the reason I was apprehensive before to get into operant conditioning is because I had this mindset that operant conditioning is for animal trainers. And I'm not a pet keeper and I'm not an animal trainer. And I don't want to do all this stupid clicking business. All right. And I was like, I have zero interest in it. I'm really uninterested in this whole idea. And so I never entertained it. And also, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but it seems, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to say it. It seems like the people that I have known that have been obsessed about and using operant conditioning and bird trainings, they don't seem like they're very serious falconers. And they're kind of like, that maybe that caricature isn't right, but that was my impression. I can only speak for my impression that kept me from going into operant conditioning in the beginning, right? Because people on forums that would be using it, I would be like, okay, really? You don't seem that hardcore of a falconer. I kind of want to be a hardcore falconer.
You don't want to be a nerd.
Yeah, I don't want to be a nerd. And I don't, that person that really like, okay. So that was one thing that kind of kept me back. Really what made me go into operant condition, purposely using operant conditioning, was I had pulled a IS goshawk from Michigan. By the way, talking about breeders and finding nests, I think it took me three years before I found my first one. So yeah, it's a lot of effort. And I found a nest. I pulled a bird from one of the nests that I found in locally here in Michigan, which we don't have take anymore now, but back then we did. And I had this choice. I was like, well, am I going to go back in my diaries and look through all my notes and continue on? Now, I had imprinted a few before. I had imprinted a female North American that I had pulled also from a nest locally here. And so I'd imprinted a few. And what kind of tipped my toe in the water with this operant condition and finger feeding was that Sharpie that I had shared with you that I had imprinted, that male Sharpie. I had always been curious about hand feeding and finger feeding birds. And I thought to myself, what's the big deal? I'll do it with a Sharpie. Like, what's the Sharpie going to do? It's not going to.
Yeah, you weren't scared of it. That's why you tried it.
Yeah, I'm not scared of it. I'm like, it'll be okay. What's the worst that's going to happen with a little Sharpie? And that bird turned out fantastic. Like, that was a finger fed bird. I treated it like I had nothing to lose. Like, I'm just going to have fun with this bird and I'm not going to worry about all of this. And, I just had so much fun with that Sharpie. One of some of the greatest memories in falconry was with that little male Sharpie. And I treated that little male Sharpie like you would a falcon, like one slip, one chase. I flew that sucker so fat. And the reason I could fly it so fat was because every time we had a chase, if he missed it, he came back. I called him back to a live sparrow on the glove. And so he was insanely fit. I didn't fly him. Falconers always say, oh, Sharpies are short, flights. They short flights. Like, that's what they're built for. And we don't really see long flights. And they're always like, oh, the European sparrowhawks, they're the ones with long flights, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm telling you, in my experience, when you fly a Sharpie insanely fat, they will fly out of sight on a slip. I had a lot of long flights. And I flew him that fat. He was finger fed. And when he came back, he always came back because he knew we had literally a baggy fresh freshly trapped baggy sparrow coming to the glove, and so I was able to. So that was kind of like my toe dipped into finger feeding, and so then when I had this male goshawk, I had done that one before. I was like, what imprinting process am I going to do? Am I going to try to learn from my mistakes and keep on honing it more and more and more? Or am I just going to go all in and do finger feeding and see what's going to happen? And a friend of mine, Jeff Hershey, is good friends with Steve. And Jeff was like, hey, he's like, I can hook you up with Steve if you want, and you can talk. And Jeff and I had talked a lot back and forth about behavioral, operant conditioning and goshawks and imprinting. And I almost think he set me up with Steve just for the fun of it, so let's see what happens kind of deal. And I bought into it. I bought into it 110% because I thought to myself, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And I'm just gonna dive in feet first, and we're going to see what's going to happen. And if anybody knows Steve, he's a brilliant man, absolutely brilliant. And I can remember talking to him and him sharing stuff with me, and it was so esoteric. It was so out there. It was hard for me to fit all the pieces together. And I liken it to like the universe that's like spinning around in space. And there's all of these little bits and pieces. There's planets, and they're all kind of floating around in space, swirling around. And you don't quite get to see the whole picture until you understand more of what's going on. But the more you understand and the more you've looked into it and experimented and seen for yourself, you get these aha moments. And if you're unable to take a thought, understand it and process it, and then throw it back out into space, let it ruminate, and then pull it back when you need it. It was if you weren't able to do that with, and I was able to do that with Steve, it would be hard for me at that time. It was very hard to understand and have everything connect. But over time, it did. So,
yeah. It's when you talk to Steve, it almost for me, and I'm like, I understand that it works, and the only reason why that I'm not jumping in head first or feet first is because I'm just basically lazy. Because it requires 100%. I'm lazy and I'm busy. It requires a lot of effort to analyze everything that's going on, and you're constantly reading your bird. I mean, even but after speaking with Steve so much, not 6 years worth like yourself, but like I go out to feed any of my birds in the chamber during the molt. If I have a lot of birds and I don't have enough space, so I have 2 beautiful weathering areas, 2 nice big chambers. So in the weathering areas, you can't hide the fact that you're feeding them. Yeah. So if I go out there, it's an ordeal because I will not give the bird food if it's screaming at me. Because I'm in the Steve. I got the Steve in my head, in the back of my mind. Yeah. If this bird is screaming at me and aggressively looking at me and I feed it, I'm literally just reinforcing the behavior. So I have to stand there for 15 minutes, wait for the bird to stop screaming, relax, and then I feed it. Or preferably it turns its back on me. The Jason Norman bird is done already. That bird is that bird is so malleable. I don't know what the deal is with that bird. I texted him when I got it. I'm like, is this thing sick? It's so calm and so relaxed. It's just so weird. It's just a weird bird.
It is interesting as you're describing that. The first thing that popped into my head is that I think we forget and we don't realize. I know this for a fact. We don't realize how intelligent our birds are, and we really underestimate the misnomer and the verbiage that has gone out there is that they are reptiles with wings, and that cannot be farther from the truth as far as I'm concerned. these birds are incredibly intelligent. There was just an article the other day that was saying how Cooper's hawks had learned the signals in New York City or some city, and learning to time their attack on prey based on the traffic. Look, I mean, and because of their small, and there was another study that birds' brains are small, but their neuron capacity density is astronomically greater than other mammals. So despite their small brains, they have incredible amounts of neuron synapses and all of that going on in those small brains. So we have to understand that our raptors that we're working with are really intelligent. They're not simple-minded. And what you were describing with your bird, screaming, and then you have to wait 15 minutes. The first thing that popped into my head is I can almost guarantee you that bird had understood cues and had heard cues happening before that. So there's probably a behavioral chain that you're not even aware of that the bird is already picking up. And it could be to the point where the bird's like, oh, I hear that. Now I'm going to scream for 15 minutes. And then after I scream for 15 minutes and then turn away, then I'll get the food. It could be as crazy as that, literally.
Casey, before you get started, what's the neuron density in your brain, you think?
My brain, I was literally, while he was saying that, I was like, dude, that's me. I got a really small brain, but I got a lot of neurons firing, dude.
Is that why you keep on lifting your head off the desk?
Yeah. No. So, all right. So then what would you recommend? So no, that's stupid to talk about feeding a bird in the mall. That's a waste of the listener's time. Let's talk about some good stuff. Let's talk how about this? Everyone talks about restrained pursuits. Can you talk us through restrained pursuits in a realistic way? And before the audience starts like shutting off their brain, just listen to this stuff, because you can get your bird extremely fit without really doing much effort. This whole the whole thing with the ladder, and the ladder works and all that and stuff like that, but there's other ways to do it. And and Isaac is here. Isaac, okay, so I got permission. I just got a text message from Master Roy himself, and he said that I can speak to the fact that Isaac knows what he's talking about, to the point where Seth will get a bird from Lance Christensen that he wants in his breeding project and have Isaac raise it for his breeding project. So this is not just like some random hippie person we're talking. I'm just like, that's some fellow homeschooler that like I'm friends with. We're the same co-op. We went to like a drama class together. This is a legitimate guy, and these things work, and you can really shape a bird into like a very, and I'm not to that level at all. Like I said, I just I dabble. I just tick my toe in a little bit. Ooh, she turns away from me to get her food. Offer him to the conditioning, but Isaac is like in this. So, but the restrained pursuits, I've seen a huge change in my birds, like in terms of fitness. Like after a hunt, we didn't get any slips. We missed. I'll just, I got a half a mile walk back to my truck. I'm just doing restrained pursuits back to the truck the whole way back there. Just tidbit. Drag, bah, 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 and then the bird is just gassed, out of breath, and it's literally you're just walking back to the truck, and you can really just get your bird like this explosive energy and fitness gain from almost very little effort on your part. So talk us through that.
Well, I think that there's a difference between vertical restrained pursuits and horizontal restrained pursuits, and I think that should be expounded upon, because when you're doing a vertical restrained pursuit, you're basically dropping a tidbit and having the bird chase it down. Okay, that requires less effort than if you do a horizontal restrained pursuit, where the bird is chasing and is staying horizontal in flight to the target, whatever that is going to be. In my case, it's the back of my lazy boy with a towel over it. So when I do a restrained pursuit, I'm not super enthusiastic about doing a vertical restrained pursuit where I toss a tidbit on the ground and then my bird is literally having gravity. It's using gravity and it's just basically pumping its wings downward. You will notice a drastic fitness level if you do a horizontal restrained pursuit, where the bird has to fly and keep horizontal as it lands on its perch. So a horizontal restraint pursuit is a much more of a workout than a vertical restraint pursuit. So I think that would be the first thing that I would talk about. So I have this little goshawk now. He is, what is he, 48 days today, I think. And today was the first day that I introduced the glove to him, and just had the quail on the glove, and he stepped onto it and started eating. And to me, the first step for restrained pursuit is actually sticky footedness. And when I have a bird that's sticky footed, I use that to my advantage. And believe it or not, I can do a restrained pursuit where the bird is not actually even restrained. It is footing my glove and trying to take me with him to the perch. And I train for that. And I put that on cue. And that's a heck of a workout. So I mean, I don't know how far you want to go into that, but that's how I start. That's how I start restraint pursuit. And then that goes into, go ahead.
We all know what a restraint pursuit is, but for people who have zero concept of what it is, just give us the basics of how, let's say an apprentice comes to you and says, Isaac, I want to do restraint pursuits with my red tail. I know nothing about it. Tell me from the get-go.
Well, I would say the first way I would introduce a restraint pursuit for an apprentice, make it easy, is you could have a lure that ends up being the target for the bird that recognizes it as a food source. It can be as simple as a tidbit that's being placed, and the bird is baiting towards the tidbit or the lure, and is trying to land on it to get it. And you can either do that by tossing a tidbit on the ground. And my recommendation is that if you do that and it's a hardwood or any hard surface, you use a foam pad or something to ease the landing, because as they bait and you let them bait and you let go, they can hit the ground pretty hard. So a foam pad or something with cushion if they're going to land, if you're going to do a vertical restraint pursuit and they're going to hit the ground that way for a tossed tidbit. And then, you know what I really like to do is I can buy, if I'm going to do a vertical restraint pursuit where it's a tossed tidbit down to the ground, I will ideally, I like to have a weight. I like to use a leash that's weighted, or I'm a big fan of using a rope for conditioning. And the restrained pursuit is you go down to the ground, you don't get a tidbit, but as soon as you turn back up to the glove, you're now pulling that weighted leash, that rope, whatever, to get up to the glove to get the tidbit. And you can alternate between that. And so you get a 2-for-1 kind of deal. It's not just a vertical restraint pursuit where you toss the tidbit on the ground, the bird works for it and gets exercise. But you're getting the bird flying back up to the glove like a jump up. It's jump ups and vertical restraint pursuits to me are like hand in hand. One doesn't happen without the other.
That's good. No, that's good. And with that kind of a concept, are you not always giving a reward? Are you tapping into that like
intermittent?
Yeah, almost like a gambling addict, like where they're like, oh, on the next one I'm gonna get it. Like you tap into that with the bird, where it's like you'll get them to do a bunch, and then when you start to see a behavior where they're kind of fed up with it, then you give them reward and give them like a little taste. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I have experimented with both, and since I openly hand feed, so my birds, imprinted or otherwise, are sitting on my left glove, and I am on my right hand. I have a full quail that's unplucked, and I am feeding them a tidbit, or I'm feeding them the quail in my right hand. And when I offer it to them, they're going to take they're going to take a bite out of that quail very nicely. And then I'm going to pull that away from them. And then I'm just going to randomly give them. And so if they do really well, like one example is that they're very smart birds. And if they don't give an effort, because sometimes they'll do a restrained pursuit, they'll pull the rope down to the ground, they'll try to catch their breath before they come back up to the glove. They do that, they don't get a bite. They get to go down, and I want them, as soon as they hit the ground, that they're coming back to the glove. Now, if they do that, then I'll reward them, and I'll let them eat I'll let them eat a few more tidbits. I'll let them, I'm like, oh, you did a good job here. I'll give you 3 bites this time, or if they don't, I'm like, and they come back up to the glove. Sorry, buddy, no food for you. Try that again. Boom, they'll go down to the ground. Then they'll come back up fast. Oh, you did great. Okay, there you go. Now you'll get another tidbit.
So it's just like, and listen, I've spent many 30 hours on my back porch with the light on while my wife is asleep with a goshawk doing this.
Yeah.
And I do find myself getting stuck in when the bird is tired, hitting the ground, hitting the pad, eating, whatever, and then just like taking a break.
Yeah.
So, and I have a lot of trouble getting over that hurdle of getting them to like keep the action going.
Yeah.
So
now there are a few things that could be going on and involved there. And this is going to sound really crazy. But if you have a very fit goshawk that has a lot of fat reserves, they will push them, and they feel comfortable enough that they will push themselves to the point of being vulnerable. Steve talks about this, and this is key because they have to have enough trust. And when I mean vulnerable, I mean exercising to the point of complete exhaustion. I have experimented with secondhand birds. I have experimented with my own birds. And what I have found is oftentimes secondhand birds that have a lot of fear and trauma, they will not put themselves into a position of vulnerability because vulnerability means death, and they don't trust you enough. And that just makes sense from a natural history perspective. Birds that are vulnerable will not push themselves 110% because guess what's around the corner? The owl, the other raptor that's gonna zip them. So they have to have enough reserves, and they have to trust you enough to put themselves in a vulnerable position. So if you have a bird that is very fit, has enough reserves to put themselves in a vulnerable position, I have found, and this is crazy, but I have found I can exercise my birds in a very short amount of time to complete exhaustion in less than 15, 20 minutes because they're willing to put and give 110% of their physical effort into earning food and working for food. I have, on the flip side, worked with secondhand birds where I'm sitting there forever. And they're just willing to do 1 tidbit, 2 back, up, down. And it's not that 110%. So that would be key.
That makes perfect sense because the bird that I'm referring to, so it's almost as if there has to be almost has to be like a curriculum set from the beginning. Where
there has to be a foundation set of trust. And then a third part of it that I need to add that's also very important is secondhand birds or birds that have endured a lot of physical, I don't keep on wanting to use the trauma, but physical stress because they've been brought down too low for too long or have been brought down too low for too long at a critical stage of development, do have actual physical limitations, and they cannot give 110%. I had a female Harris hawk that I worked with that was that way. I worked with fun bird to work with, only Harris hawk that I ever messed with, and I got her in decent shape. What I thought was decent, what most people would think was in decent shape, but to me, she didn't pass mustard because she physically she just couldn't do it. Now here's a key point too, because a lot of people will say, well, that's just BS. And you know what? That Harris hawk got transferred off to another guy. He's catching ducks with her. He's catching pheasants with, not pheasants, but rabbits with her. She's doing well. She's catching game. The question becomes, how do you want to catch the game? These birds are so smart. Did you guys watch? Did you see that Harris hawk that was like one leg was cut off and it was like burnt to hell, and they trapped it out in the Arizona desert and it was fat as anything? Like they are so smart. They can figure out a way to survive. So if even as falconers, if we handicap our birds due to physical limitations because we brought them down too low for too long, and they can't get that back, they can still figure out a way to catch game. The question is, how do you want to catch game, and in what way do you want to see that game being caught? And so for me, when I worked with that one Harris hawk, I just said, I can see what I'm seeing already in my living room and house. She just doesn't have the ability to give 110%. And I'm not going to, if I can't see it in the living room, I'm not going to see it in the field. That's for sure.
So going back to like the very basics of the restrained pursuit, what I get most of what you're talking about is you're literally holding like the leash or the creants, and you're just
or the jesses,
and you're adding resistance to the flight,
correct,
and kind of following them to the target.
That's correct.
Can you do
you can do two?
I'm sorry, Isaac. Can you do it with? Could you put like a weighted line? We talk about ropes and chains and stuff like that. Could you do like a creance line attached to like a tube of like, sand or rocks?
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, any kind of resistance you could use. I use a thick 1-inch round rope if I'm going to be outside, and you can use that rope. You can put knots in the rope to make it heavier. You can dunk that rope in water. And what's really cool, believe it or not, guys, I have thrown away the creance. The creance is in the dustbin of history for me. I use exclusively a rope. And it's really cool once you start using a rope. When you understand how the rope works, you can double it back on itself to make it less heavy. You can, when you play with it, you can see what makes the bird work harder. You can make it easier on the bird, and it gradually gets harder and harder and harder based on where the rope is positioned, how it's spiraled on the ground, if there's snow, so I use a rope. But yes, to your point, you could use anything. One of my favorites is a retractable dog leash, and I put one in there. You get a good brand, like I forget what the German Austrian company that makes it, Flexco or whatever it is. And I use the heaviest duty flexible retractable dog leash. And I used to do this thing before I went down this route with trauma, and worried about paper cuts, as Steve calls them. Was I used to do what I called forced restrained pursuits, and that was I trained the bird to land on a perch, a target perch. And it was the cue for the bird to leave the glove to land on the perch was the flick of the wrist. And flick of the wrist happened, and the bird would then, it started off in a short distance, 1 foot, just to try to get the bird on the perch, just like you would a bow perch maybe or whatever. And then I would do that a little bit. And then I would step back to 3 feet, and then I would step back to 4 feet. And if you do that and you train the bird, it's actually, in operant conditioning terms, it's a removal of the negative. You are flicking the bird, and it doesn't like to be flicked, and it maybe doesn't like you. So it's going to fly away, and it's going to land on perch. You're going to pick it up, and you're going to do that. And you can do for what I call forced restraint. I don't recommend them, but you can do, I don't recommend them now. I did walk a friend through this process, and that Cooper's hawk, that Passage Cooper's hawk, was the most insane, fittest Cooper's hawk he ever had. And forced restraint pursuits are no food. It's just conditioning the bird when you flick the wrist that it lands on the perch, because it doesn't like the flick of the wrist. It lands on the perch. And what I did with the retractable dog leash is flick the wrist and then run the leash through my fingers as the leash got pulled out and it landed. And then you can literally make it easier or harder about how hard you pinch your fingers as it runs through the leash runs through them. So that's one way you can do a restrained pursuit. Now you could do that instead of doing a forced restrained pursuit with no food. You could put a tidbit there and do the same thing if you wanted, and that would be again a horizontal restrained pursuit, not a vertical, down to the ground restrained pursuit.
Yeah. So this is something that really helped me for, Aaron and the listeners, maybe if they're not understanding, this really helped me kind of like get over the hurdle of what's going on with the restrained pursuit. And Steve, I don't know if it was Isaac, was it a dream or was it a hallucination that Steve had? He had a dream, or I don't know if it was a hallucination, but it was basically where
vision.
It was a vision, and it was a rabbit running. And the way he sets this stuff up, man, I mean, this guy, and listen, this is not like a cult thing. Like this guy, like when you talk to him on the phone, when you get this guy on the phone and you got an issue and this guy gets on the phone with you, you start getting he sucks you in, bro. Like I'm ready to move in with the guy. And he really, it's amazing the way that he breaks this stuff down. And basically, essentially for me, I was pushed over the edge with the restrained pursuits where he said that he was in a dream or hallucination or whatever it was. He definitely didn't use the word hallucination, but it was like a rabbit was running and the bird was flying and he had a string on the rabbit and on the bird. And as this hunt and this slip is going on, he was able to draw the rabbit, slow the rabbit down with one string and increase the speed of the other string, which would allow the bird to fly faster. And then when the bird was about to catch it, he could release the rabbit and the rabbit would run faster. And then the bird would put forth more effort to catch the rabbit. So basically he could create the most intensely difficult hunt, at his fingertips. And that's basically the way he broke it down, where I can, I have the video that Isaac watched. There's one little clip there where I'm walking back from a hunt. We didn't catch anything in, early fall. It's hot. And I'm walking back to the truck and I flick a tidbit and you just see the goshawk just rip off the glove after the tidbit. And I'm just you could see the bird flying through the air horizontally, but pumping and not really going anywhere. And as you would think she would want to give up, I give her a little slack to show her that she's gaining. So then she puts forth more effort and then she starts gaining more. And then she starts pulling more from my fingers. So I squeeze a little bit and it's all happening within microseconds. And basically she put forth an 80-yard, 50-yard flight to go 10 feet to get a tidbit, essentially. Right. Is that correct, Isaac?
Yeah, that's I think if I remember right on Steve's story with that, I think the catalyst that started this thought was him watching some little sparrow or snow bunting or some bird fighting the wind in a snowstorm. I think it was, and I think that was the start. And the bird was hovering in place, fighting the wind, and that was kind of they got it. Steve, the brilliance of Steve is his original thought. I have never met an individual that had so many original thought and ideas. It's just incredible. And I think that was the beginning, if I remember right. I'll have to talk to him again, but I think that was the original of how he got this idea of resistance and birds chasing. But to Aaron's point of how would you share some restrained pursuit with a new person? The first thing that comes to mind is our birds bait, and then as soon as they feel that tug, they come back to the glove. So it's kind of hard. How would you teach a new falconer that their bird has learned, okay, I feel that tug and I come right back up to the glove? I think if the reward is big enough and you time it right, where you let them have their way of, as you just described, Casey, and that it's a little bit of an art. You're just, and you know what, if you do it too often, you're going to train your bird. When I say too often, I mean the bird baits, goes, tries to get a tidbit, doesn't get it, and then comes back up to the glove. If it does that too many times, then it learns, well, I just can't get the tidbit. So you're better off gradually introducing, one wing beat, two wing beat, right before you think that it's going to get back up to the glove. Let it have it, because you're going to have to train that new bird to bait for the tidbit to actually get it. And I mean, I as I'm saying all of this, I'm thinking of all the traditional falconers that are saying, WTF, what is this guy saying, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, this is where the story can get really complicated really fast. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Like, very good friend of mine, we were talking, and he was talking about, be careful of how, you pet the falcon, because if you pet the falcon, if you give your fingers to the imprint falcon, you're training it to bite on something, right? You can bite your fingers, and he's absolutely right. And it's this huge thing of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So you're saying you've learned that if you give fingers to the falcon, it's something for the falcon to learn to bite and nibble on. So instead of reaching out and offering a finger, you offer the back of the hand with your fingers close. Okay. So you don't give the opportunity to teach the falcon fingers or something to bite, right? That makes sense. That's absolutely an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. When you get into the operant conditioning world and you know how it works, and it's a tool that you know how to utilize, you shrug your shoulders and say, big whoop, I'll just train out of it. It doesn't mean anything. And that's the kind of freedom that I'm talking about. You're no longer bound by ounce of prevention is worth, although it's still a thing that works. It's still a thing that's important to realize and to practice. But you are no longer bound by strict rules and rigid dogmatic practices or do's and don'ts. There almost are no do's and don'ts, because anything you run into, you can shape your way out of. You can fix. There's so much freedom in that. It's mind-blowing.
That's fascinating stuff. So if we can't all call Steve and talk to him for 3 hours at a time, unfortunately, right, Casey? Casey's on this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's like it's like a cheat code for a video game. I mean, just like Isaac said, it's like, like me and Isaac, when we went hawking, I know you weren't overly impressed with me, but that's okay.
How do you know I wasn't overly impressed?
Because I wasn't overly impressed with me.
It was one of those real common bad days, right?
Yeah, it was
I didn't say anything. I'm like, did I say anything? No, I didn't say anything.
You didn't have to. You didn't have to.
I just were like, but it must have been the look on your face. How would somebody kind of start to delve into the operant conditioning without hitting up Steve or you?
The first thing that I would do is I would read Karen Pryor's book, Don't Shoot the Dog. That was the first book that Steve said I should read, and I did. And it was really an interesting book. That book, believe it or not, isn't really so much about animal training. It's a story of how operant conditioning is used in daily life. And again, this thing of operant condition is like a law of nature. We're using it all the time. When I look at you and I smile, I'm giving you a positive reinforcement. When
you smile at me.
Casey has a wonderful smile.
I was hoping for a smile when we were hawking in PA with Seth, but
you didn't get it though, did you?
I got a real exacerbated smile after my bird finally caught a rabbit that was right out in the open that any bird could have caught, and then I just saw Isaac just kind of like smiling and I said it. You heard me say it. I said it has to be a slip like that. Otherwise, she's not going to catch. And then Phil was with us, Phil Aaliyah, and he's seen my journey with this new bird, which I ruined on the lure machine. I've come to the conclusion that's what happened. And Phil's like, what are you talking about? That bird was flying great this time. And I'm like, yeah, because I finally pushed the envelope where if you don't push yourself, you're not catching anything and you're not getting a reward. So right towards the end of the season, I started if she flew like garbage and missed, instead of pushing it till dark till we caught something, I would just put her away and then feed her later at night like hungry, to reinforce if you fly like garbage, you're not getting it, which is also the same. It's on the same line of what we're talking about, where your bird realizes if I just kind of lazily chase a rabbit around, eventually I'll catch it. No, not if you put it back in the box. Because if you put it back in the box, now you lost your opportunity. And this is the thing. Just to wrap this all in a bow, so we can, because we'll just keep going. To wrap it in a bow is when you have a red tail that won't jump to the glove, and you have the food in front of its face, how many times have we all taken the food away, turned our back, stood there for 10 seconds, and then re-showed the food to the bird, and then the bird hops for some reason? Yeah. Why? Because they realized that their opportunity to eat was gone, right. And it showed itself again, and then they hopped. We've all done it. So It's like they all know this little game. It's just how far do you want to play the game? How deep do you want to go?
It's a law of nature. We're using it all the time, whether we know it or not, whether we're using it or not using it. It's happening. I mean, to your point, how often, like you said, you raise your glove up to the bird, and a new bird, right? And you're holding your glove up there and you toot the whistle and the bird doesn't come, and you toot the whistle again. This is a newbie mistake, right? And you keep on holding your glove up, and the bird just takes his sweet time until finally it comes down. Took me when I was, I don't know, maybe my second year, I learned, I'm holding my glove up. I'm tooting the whistle on the cranes. If you don't come down, my hand is dropping and I'm walking 10 more feet away. So the bird is making this kind of a food budget association, saying, I better get my butt over there because I'm going to have to fly 10 more feet. So I'd rather come hear that toot and get to that glove now before he moves 10 feet away or 20 feet away or whatever the case is when you're following. Now you have to be careful, right? Because how many times have we seen that with accipiters? They're really smart, and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to sit up here in this tree and let that schmuck try to call me down. And I'm going to sit here a little longer. And then he's going to get real antsy, and he's going to bring out that pigeon and call me down after he chases me all across town. Okay. Hey, I'm going to get my free pigeon anyway. That's how smart they are. I'm serious.
No, I agree. And like a red tail is I would say a red tail is really straightforward. Where like you throw the lure down, and we've all done it, and we've all been there. Same thing with turning your back. That's like a huge cheat code to get your bird to hop. Is if you take the food away and then show it again, then they're like, oh, there it is. Let me get it. It's like an instinctual thing for them. And the same thing with the lure. Like you're trying to call the bird down with the lure. You put it on the ground. As soon as you start walking away with the lure dragging behind you, the bird's like, oh no, it's getting away. And then they want to go get it. So it's like a little, they all had this little thing in them. And it's just, if you tap into it, then you can, but this stuff is really good though. And we're all, like you said, Isaac, we're all doing it. We're all putting our glove up or whistling or whatever our call is. And the bird is coming, and you're doing all these reinforcement. It's just and I really love what you said, Isaac, about how I'm not afraid. Like even when and this is where I was trying to go before, when we were hawking in PA, I was getting all pissed off about my North American and her behavior and the way she was acting. Deep down inside, I know I could spend a week and fix her. But I was basically I was asking you, how could I get rich without, or how could I lose weight with just taking a pill? I was basically asking you, Isaac, what can I do with this bird that'll fix her tomorrow? And you're like, dude, we got to talk about this. And I was like, all right, forget it. But it was, but I was like, I know if I just take a week off of hawking and walk around
my hope was you would get so frustrated you just give the bird to me.
I know. Seth kind of let it slip. He's like, Isaac kind of wants that bird. I was like, hell no. I'm like, that bird's a good bird, man. I'm like, I just let her behavior just kind of go out of control. And I was flying two birds at the same time. And it kind of and she kind of slipped to the side with my effort on the new bird. And her behavior became a little bit not where I wanted it. And I know that if it was the only bird I flew, I could, based off of the conversation I had with Steve and in the past, I could fix her in a week. But I'm like,
that's what I heard when you were saying all of that. I'm like, oh, man, that's why I was quizzing you on all the background history of her. And then all the ticks were being, tick, tick, tick. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good bird right there. Well, wasn't frustrated enough.
Seth let it slip.
All the groundwork is there. It's 1 week away.
Yeah, I was like, and Seth is like, I was like, Isaac didn't really give me any insight. He's like, oh yeah, because he wants your bird. And I was like, oh, get the hell out of here. No way. But yeah, he like let it slip. He's like, Isaac, and Seth told me too. He's like, you're not selling that bird. You're not giving that bird away. That bird's coming to me if you ever get rid of it. Because Seth likes that bird too. But she's just got, I just needed to put more time into her behavior, and she would have snapped right out of it. But I didn't do that this year, and that was my fault. But I didn't, exactly, because I'm lazy. And that's what I said. I'm not the best falconer, and I make mistakes all the time. But this whole operant conditioning, the whole concept of it is like so important for like everyday life, dealing with your bird. If you got a red tail that's going after your face, or like there's all these little things. Like if you just like you said, if you just read, I didn't read the book, but I know the concept of the book. If you just get your mind in that mode, then you can see the behavior, and then oh, the bird's attacking me. Oh, I got to give it a tidbit. Oh, she wants to eat. No, you're just telling the bird to like do that all the time, and then it gets rewarded. So you don't do that.
Well, that's the operant conditioning behavioral science. That's one aspect of this. But just as important, and this cannot be misunderstated, and that is a natural history story of the species that you're working with. These two are the foundational aspects of really getting the most out of your bird. And what's amazing is that once you've learned operant conditioning and you understand it, you can watch any animal training video out there and you can see what's going on. Like I can watch horse trainers and I'm like, I see what they're doing. And I have no idea about horse training. I just know the natural history story of the horse. I know what's positive reinforcement, what negative reinforcement, how's that working? And what's really cool is that once you've learned all of this stuff and you observe other falconers, you can know exactly what's going on, why it's happening, why it's not happening. And have you ever run into a falconer that has horrible handling skills and yet somehow they get these little passes on stuff? And you're like, how is that? How does that happen? Well, because that one little thing that they do at that one little spot that they always do is a certain behavioral chain. It's a certain thing that works. And if you know the operant conditioning, the how it works behind it, you can look and say, that's why it works. Nothing else may work, but that works. Yes. And that's the reason why.
We got a guy in Maryland that he does that without realizing it. And it always works for him for some reason. I don't know why.
I think I met this guy when I was at the New Jersey meet. I think I met this falconer.
Yeah, he just, he's like, everything's bad, but like somehow he just is on fire, just killing everything with his birds. It's just great. But shout out to Harrison. He's a good falconer. But all right, Aaron's blanket is getting comfy, and we gotta wrap this.
This blanket's warming up. All right, yeah. Isaac, we could do this for 10 hours.
And I think we should do it again. I think we should do a part 2 and get right to the nitty gritty. Now that we got to know you, the listeners got to know you. Now, when we start again, we can really just start with the good stuff. And I think this all, listen, I don't know if half the people that clicked on this episode are still listening now, but this stuff is extremely important. It really helps. Well, yeah. And listen, it really helped me. And even with a red tail, even with a Harris dog, it will really help you into just like understanding that certain things that you're doing, and I'm not the best at it. Like I said, I'm fully man enough to admit that, but the concept of it will help you in just day-to-day hawking and dealing with your birds of prey, just to understand that like you're going outside to feed your bird. That's their whole day is waiting for you to feed them. So they're analyzing every little thing that's going on that you're doing. And if you see something that you don't like, if you understand where the bird is coming from, you can shape the behavior to get it to where you want, so that they'll perform an action that you want. And it's just like a perfect symbiotic relationship where you can shape the behavior to make your life easier, make the bird's life easier, and put game in your bag.
Yeah. I think that if I could give one last parting point of advice that I would want the takeaway to be. And that is that I think falconers have, I don't think this has always been the case. I think this is a more modern phenomenon. And that is, do not underestimate the amount of trauma a bird will endure to survive. They are survivors, and they will put up with a whole heck of a lot of crap and seemingly not be affected by it. But the effect of it is flight weight, and that is a reduction in flight weight to overcome fear and trauma. So if we can avoid fear, if we can avoid trauma, if we can avoid these kinds of certain kinds of behaviors, like I was talking to my friend Lance Christensen, and when I was over there, and I'm like, what is with these falconers nowadays? And I no offense to these falconers, but hopefully it's a learning opportunity. What is with these falconers? We rip these birds off of BC traps and we hold them like ice cream cones. Like, where did this come from? Like manning, forced habitual manning to the point where the birds are just, right off of the trap in the middle of the living room with no hood on in broad daylight and just force. Like, where did this come from? Because back in the history and if you read the old writings from way, way back, we never did that. Even the more modern day writings, Ron, what's his name? Oh, I forgot. He wrote a really good book. I forget his name. I want to say his name is Ron, but that's not. Anyway, these falconers from even back in the day, we candlelight, gradual manning, not aggressive approaches. So something has happened in modern day falconry culture where we've seemed to gone. Am I wrong in that, or is it just
You're 100% correct. It's somebody must have done it, then somebody else did it, and just like a TikTok trend.
Yeah.
15 years later, everybody's still doing it, and it's not the right way. It's not the right approach. But my bird still catches stuff. It doesn't matter.
The people that aren't going to do well with an accipiter, though.
That's my point. I mean, or I would argue with any bird to a certain extent. Some are more forgiving than others, but if you want to get your true potential out of your raptor, you have to. So a little bit of kind of the reason why I kind of got obsessed with all this trauma and fear learning and all of this kind of stuff, and that kind of I listened to, I kind of absorbed it from Steve, was because I worked in the school systems for 5 years before what I'm doing now, and I worked in special education. So we learned about trauma-based learning and all of this kind of stuff. So I'm very into all of that fear and watching people's response and all of that. So it kind of bled my falconry, and the whole of that kind of bled into what I learned in schools and all of that, and with working with kids from rough backgrounds, etc. And and then when I started looking and analyzing the birds that I'm working with, my imprints, and learning to read behavior, I'm not going to brag, but honestly, I can just look at a goshawk and I can tell you, based on its head shape, its crest, its pupil dilation, its movement of its head, how open its eyes are, I can tell you exactly what it's thinking, what it's feeling, just by looking at the head. And I can actually tell you by pictures, when I see pictures of birds, which ones are relaxed and which ones are in heightened state, just by looking at the pictures. But that takes, you're looking for it. Like, you want to be obsessed about it. But once you've learned and you're seeing that, they're telling you what they're feeling in real time, just like a dog wagging their tail. It's just where most falconers are missing it. That's the thing. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And you're like, wow. and for me, I can handle and train almost anything out, even, but the hardest thing is if they have fear and if they have trauma, it takes a lot of shaping behavior to undo it. And one final thing on that is I took Steve's advice and I imprinted that bird with no fear, no trauma. And I did an experiment. And that was halfway through. I said to Steve, now I'm going to go back to my old ways. And I'm going to try and I'm going to use habituation and I'm going to go off the deep end, just like I did before. And when I did that switch, it was heartbreaking, but it was for science, if you will, because I went from a bird that was almost like trusted me to lost complete trust of me. And it was like, he was looking at me and he's like, what are you doing? And I had so much fear and I had so much paper cuts from habituation, just like, you know what, we're going to go in the car. You don't like riding in the car? We're going to man you in the car and we're going to run around the block with you on the glove. You don't like it? Tough luck. You're going to get used to it, right? You're an imprint, for Pete's sake. What does it matter? You've done this before. And that bird had, in that short amount of time, developed so much fear and trauma. And I had to cut that bird's weight back way higher, way sharper than I ever had to before. And it took me almost a full year and a half to shape over all of that behavior because of the amount. So I went from perfect to I screwed it up on purpose to put it back to perfect, just to test if what Steve was saying was right. And that bird is now donating for Seth. So, what Steve has been saying for all these years, it's not just hypothesis. I've tested it myself.
Yeah, agreed, man. Yeah. And I was 100%. We're going to wrap it, but yeah, I seen it with my own eyes. I seen the birds, literally the entire behavior of the bird shape before my eyes in 72 hours, just implementing these very simple things. And yeah, the bird still had a lot of issues, and that's why Phil took it. But you saw at the Jersey meet, Phil having that thing hop around, doing all this stuff, that white bird. And It was a great bird. It turned out to be a really nice bird, and it was fine. So you can overcome these things, but why give the bird the trauma that it doesn't need for a photo? There's no reason to do it.
Yeah.
And that's, all right, Aaron.
With an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. That can't be overstated with fear and trauma. You just avoid it because it's a lot it can be done, but it's a lot of work to shape over.
100%. Well said.
All right, Isaac, thank you so much for coming on. Very insightful stuff. Very fascinating. We got to do it again soon.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it.